What's up? It's your boy KC. How y'all doing? I'm coming at you live with episode 23 on my podcast show. First things first, if you're a huge boxing fan like me, we lost the greatest boxer in the history of boxing. The most iconic, charismatic, and controversial boxer in history. Muhammad Ali passed away this month, and it hurts because he is an idol as far as boxing goes. My idol. I watch a boxing match of his every single day. This guy had a style like no other boxer. He would dance around the ring for 12 rounds, and I'm wondering how this guy is not tired. Seriously, the smack that this guy used to talk, this guy could easily fit in the world of wrestling. And he did go into wrestling. He didn't wrestle, but he was a part of wrestling. He had a lot of appearances. The great fights that he had against George Foreman, Sonny Liston, Smoking Joe Frazier, and even the obscure fighters that people really don't know about, he still made good matches out of them. And it sucks that he's gone. He struggled with Parkinson's disease for a very long time, and I'm glad that he made it to the age he was at, having that disease. And God rest his soul, rest in peace, man. We lost another one. Kimbo Slice died this month also. It appears that he was having heart troubles and he was waiting on a heart transplant, but he died before he could get it. He made his name in the world of street fighting, and he was also in UFC and mixed martial arts. He died at the age of 42 years old. I don't know too much about him. I haven't really seen a lot of his fights. I've seen a couple. The guy was a straight up badass, I could say that. You know what grinds my gears? Self-help books, relationship books, 100 ways to please your man, how to get a lady to like you in 5 different steps. Are you serious? Ladies, we are not that complicated to figure out. Have you been listening to us for the past 500 years? Men want the same thing today that we wanted back then. Food, sex, stability, and love. That's it. And we're happy. Everything else beyond that is just privileges. It's not that difficult to figure out. You don't need no damn book to tell you that. And as for those books on how to get a lady to like you in 5 different steps, those books are bullshit. Fellas, have you ever tried just being a gentleman? I mean, you know, that works. Maybe making a lady laugh. If you can make a lady laugh, you're golden. I mean, seriously, we don't need a fucking book to tell us this shit. And that's what grinds my gears. On to the world of wrestling. And I gotta say this. Tell me I'm not having deja vu again. Real events, another brand split. I really don't want to see another brand split. I'm not interested in it. And here's my reasons why. Number 1, you have a lot of guys hurt right now on the main roster, and you have a thin roster. So to take that and split them up and put specific wrestlers on Raw and specific wrestlers on SmackDown is a terrible idea. The fact that Raw is 3 fucking hours, you expect us to sit through half of a roster for 3 hours? That means we're going to be seeing people wrestling 2, maybe even 3 times a night, or they're going to jam Raw with a bunch of commercials, which makes them a lot of money, but it's not good if you're a wrestling fan. Think about the women professional wrestlers that they have there. There are so few of them to spread out between 2 rosters. Not a good idea. Also, I don't want to see another fucking world title. We just got it back down to 1. Like every other wrestling company out there, there's 1 top guy, 1 championship. That's the way that I grew up on wrestling, and I'm sure a lot of you have grew up on that too. Having 2 fucking world titles just makes things more confusing, and it's just a secondary title. We don't need another one. It just devalues both world titles when you have 2 world champions. This is the problem that we have in boxing now. Boxing has so many fucking titles that I lost count. It just waters down everything. The only way that this thing is going to work for me, in my opinion, is if they take NXT and they make NXT the second brand. You have brand WWE, which is Raw and SmackDown, and you have NXT. Now here's what I would do if I was Vince McMahon. I would keep Raw and SmackDown the same way that it is, which the superstars get to bounce back and forth between shows. You still have both shows on both days, but keep all of them off NXT. NXT would be the second brand because they have their own superstars, their own championships. The people already love NXT, so it would be strong enough to hold up against Raw and SmackDown. You would save that for the supercards when you have all the dream matches that you want to on the pay-per-view events. That's what I would do. Are they going to do that? Do they have enough brains to do that? I think not, but let's hope for the future. And the main reason why I don't want to see another brand split for as long as I live is simply this: the McMahons. I've been watching wrestling a long time, since 1988 when I was in diapers. I sat through the golden era, which was great. I loved it. Went through the attitude era, which was my favorite. Went through the ruthless aggression era, all the way up until now. And the one thing that has always been constant since 1997 is it's all about the McMahons. I watched Vince McMahon be the evil owner. I watched Shane McMahon be the owner in the corporate ministry. The McMahon-Helmsley faction with Stephanie McMahon being the owner. I sat through the god-awful invasion angle with all McMahons at each other's throats. I am tired of seeing the McMahons on TV. It was great to see Shane McMahon come back, but not to this. They're going to have Shane and Stephanie be GMs of one of the shows, either Raw or SmackDown. That put the final nail in the coffin for me, because I don't want to see that shit. We already saw this before. And you want to talk about deja vu? Let's compare the similarities between the early 2000s and now, shall we? Triple H and Stephanie are running the show. Check. We sat through a reign of terror with Triple H being the champion that made me wish that there was a power outage every time he was on my TV. Check. We have a power struggle between the McMahons. Check. The only difference between then and now is that instead of Triple H burying people with his golden shovel and his sledgehammer, we have Stephanie McMahon burying people with her slap. That's the only difference. I've had enough. I want to talk about Ric Flair for a second, because in my last show, I said that Ric Flair was stopped at the airport for being under the influence, and I tore into him. I made a mistake on that. After reading further up into the article, it turns out that he was injured and they was just checking him out. So I want to apologize to the Nate for that one. I made a mistake. Jerry Lawler makes the news as him and his girlfriend were arrested for domestic violence. They both have two different sides of the story. His girlfriend saying that Lawler grabbed her by the neck, slammed her against the wall, put the gun on the table, and told her to go kill herself. Jerry Lawler said that his girl was drunk and she put the gun on the table saying that she was going to kill herself. So nobody knows the true story yet. And there's a lot of people that are saying it's the end of Jerry Lawler. I think not, because he's been caught up in stuff for a long time. And he's always managed to come out clean on the other side. So I wouldn't say that he's done just yet. He has been suspended for a while until this case stuff is all solved. So let's see what happens. It looks like events have changed WWE's plans once again. And we have a new WWE World Heavyweight Champion in Dean Ambrose. Now, I like the fact that he's the champion. It doesn't make any sense, but I do like the fact that he's the champion, because Roman Reigns has been suspended for the next 30 days for failing the wilderness policy. WWE put the announcement up on their website a couple of days ago, so it is legit. Roman Reigns took to Twitter to apologize to his friends and family. He made the mistake and he's owning up to it. Now, as much as I like Dean Ambrose being a champion, it's cool, but it's also bittersweet, and I'll tell you why. Roman Reigns was handed a bad deck of cards. He is a victim of bad booking. WWE didn't know how to use him right, and his reign was bad for it. I think that Reigns, as a man, is treated very unfairly and cruel by the fans because they didn't get what they want. Now, I can understand not wanting people to be picked for you. You want to pick the guy that you like. But like it or not, Reigns is going to be the top guy, and I have nothing against the guy. I think he's improved a lot as far as wrestling goes. He can use a hell of a lot more work in his promo skills because his promos are garbage. He can have very good matches, and I just think that if WWE would get their heads out of their asses and use the guy the way that they should use him, he would be better off for it. And I don't think that the fans gave him a fair shake. That's why it's bittersweet for me. Now that Reigns is gone for the next 30 days, let me put this in a way that the WWE writers would understand. You have a ready-made feud. You already have a way to make this thing work. When Reigns comes back, he needs to be a heel to make this work, because you have Ambrose as the champion. These two were best friends, and now Dean Ambrose took the title, something that Reigns holds near and dear to him. He took it away. This infuriates Reigns. Reigns hates Ambrose for it, and when they come back, you have a ready-made main event feud, because Reigns is going to get his rematch. Let's do this. Let's make this happen, okay? I can't explain it any more simpler than I just did. You cannot have Reigns come back as the condescending asshole that is pretending to be a babyface when he's really a heel. Have him come back enraged and silent. Take the Goldberg route. Don't have him say anything. Just let him come back and just destroy people. Silent but deadly. That works best. Video gamers, it's that time again. E3 is over, and boy, do we have a lot of games coming out. I haven't been this excited in a long time. We got a new Monster Hunter Generations coming out for the 3DS, Persona 5. We have 2 new Final Fantasies coming out. Final Fantasy 12, I believe it is, and Final Fantasy 15. We have some new Star Wars games coming out. A new Star Ocean is coming out. A new Mass Effect called Mass Effect Andromeda. A new God of War, Gravity Rush 2, Guilty Gears, Gears of War 4, Just Cause 3. There's so many games that's coming out that I'm hyped up for. And then we have the standard regular bullshit that we always get, like a new Call of Duty, go figure. We have a new Zelda game, go figure. We have more Pokemon games coming out. Gee whiz, like we didn't have enough of those. Minus that bullshit, we got some great games that are coming out. There was a game that jumped out at me that made me excited. I jumped out of my chair with joy, only to land flat on my face with disappointment. I'm serious, I literally landed on the ground and just laid there for a few minutes because I was so disappointed. Resident Evil 7. When I saw that name flash across the screen, I was like, oh shit, let's see what happens. Maybe they'll bring back Rebecca, maybe they'll bring back Billy, or they'll have all the main characters like Jill, Ada, Chris, Leon interact with each other, work with each other to end a threat. I'm not talking about a colossal fuck like Resident Evil 6 was, but an actual constructed storyline where you all work together. Boy, was I disappointed, because not only are none of them in it, we have a new character that nobody heard about. Now, I'm not against bringing in somebody new, but you bring in somebody new with someone that they know as a partner. Like you have Claire with Moira, Barry's daughter. You have Barry with Natalia. I can deal with that, but when you bring in someone that nobody knows, that sucks. And that's not even the worst part about it. When I found out that this game is a first-person shooter, I'm not talking about that game that I was talking about in my last episode. That's a whole different thing. This is Resident Evil 7. This game was created for the sole purpose to use the VR for the PlayStation 4, and that fucking sucks. And I'm going to tell you like this. This game right here, if they keep it the way that it is, this game is going to flop worse than a fish out of water. I'm telling you like this. This game is going to bomb. It will not be as popular as the other Resident Evil games. I guarantee it. I am not interested in it. I don't want it. I'm not going to waste my money on this shit if they continue to go on through with that. Somebody asked me, do I prefer PC gaming or console gaming? And I'm going to answer it right here and now. PC gaming is great. You have a lot of games on there that are not on the consoles. But I prefer console gaming, and here's why. 9 times out of 10, when you have a console, any console, the games that they put out for it, if they actually take the time to make it work, they're going to work perfectly fine. But with PC gaming, you have to have a powerful PC. I mean a really powerful PC to be able to play the games that they have these days. And even with that powerful PC, it's still a gamble if the game is going to work, because I see people on Twitch all the time play these newer games and it's all choppy and shit. It's all slowed down, and it's probably more expensive to have PC gaming than it is to have console gaming, because yeah, the games cost $60 a pop for the consoles, but that's pretty much all you have to worry about. With the PC, you have to keep buying memory and external hard drives, to be able to hold these games because games are getting bigger by the day. So I prefer console gaming overall. That's what I've been playing my whole life. I've never really been a PC gamer. There are games out here that I would like to try, but my laptop is not strong enough to hold this stuff, and I'm not going to pay all that damn money just to be able to play a lot of these games. So there's my answer. Console gaming. I feel that some of the gamers in the video game world are becoming too picky for their own good, specifically because of graphics, and that's really bad. I'm going to single out the PS Vita and the 3DS for two perfect examples. Those consoles have great games on them, beautiful looking games that are enjoyable to play. But because they don't look as good as the console games, people don't give it the love and they don't give them the chances like they deserve just because they don't look as good. I have a PS Vita. I have the port of Mortal Kombat 9, which I think looks great on the PS Vita. Resident Evil Revelations 2, after they updated it, it does run very smooth and it looks good. I'm just happy that we got a Resident Evil on the Vita, because how many years has Capcom ignored that handheld? I'm being dead serious. I'm happy we got that. And I just wish that people would stop doing that, because it makes it very hard for developers to keep making games when you have people that picky. And it's ridiculous. And while I'm on the subject of the PS Vita, they are creating an add-on which is going to give the PS Vita L2 and R2 buttons, so that when you do remote play for the PS3 and PS4, it'll feel more authentic. The game of the week is Silent Hill 3. That is my favorite out of that series. I went back and played that and figured out that I have some kind of weird twisted obsession with the number 3 as far as video games go, because Mega Man 3 is my favorite out of the Mega Man series. Silent Hill 3 is my favorite out of the Silent Hill series. Devil May Cry 3 is my favorite out of the DMC series. Metal Gear Solid 3 is my favorite out of the Metal Gear Solid series. So you see the pattern here? Anyways, you take control of Heather Mason, trying to find out why you're being pursued by a cult and a cult leader named Claudia who had an abusive father, and all this weird, crazy, batshit insane stuff happens to Heather because they said she's this reincarnation of some kind of goddess that they're trying to release upon the world to purge the world of all people and to make it pure again. Does that sound like it makes sense? Anyways, the game is awesome. The graphics are great. The game is full with so many unlockables, from clothes to different weapons. They even have a lightsaber. Once I found out they had that shit, I was hooked. It's full of puzzles. This is what Resident Evil used to be before they turned into Gears of War. Anyways, check out the game. Is it worth it? This game called Double Dragon 5, The Shadow Falls. It's a game that's like Street Fighter 2 and Mortal Kombat, a one-on-one fighting game that capitalizes off the cartoon that was out then. Is this game worth it? Hell no, it's not worth it. This game fucking sucks. It's one of the worst games that I've ever played in my whole life. But I will give them credit for something. They did figure out what Billy and Jimmy Lee actually look like. That's the one knock on Double Dragon that I've always had. If you look at all the cartridges to all Double Dragons minus Shadow Falls and Super Double Dragon, Billy and Jimmy Lee always had different damn looks. Look at Double Dragon 1, Billy has red hair. Double Dragon 2, they both have red. Double Dragon 3, they both have red. I was under the impression that Jimmy Lee had blonde hair and Billy had black, or at least brunette at least. So that was the impression that I had. And the only games that got it right was Super Double Dragon or Return of the Double Dragon in Japan and Double Dragon 5 Shadow Falls. So enough of that rant. Double Dragon 5 sucks. The graphics are garbage. The moves suck. Everything about it. They even have finishing moves that are fucking stupid, which you can knock out Jawbreaker's teeth. Somehow Billy and Jimmy turn to skeletons and Sickle spins into the ground. Take my word for it. Do not play this game unless you enjoy torturing yourself. I have found other uses for this game, like propping up a table, maybe using it as a soap dish, maybe use it as some toilet paper, but don't play this game. Anime otakus, it's your turn once again. It's time to talk about Dragon Ball Super and the return of Future Trunks. It's about damn time they brought this guy back because he kicks ass and he's way better than that little annoying bastard that we got in the main timeline that does absolutely nothing. For those of y'all who don't know Future Trunks, he comes from an alternate timeline where everybody is dead. Future Goku dies of a heart virus, everybody's killed by Lapis and Lazuli, aka C-17 and C-18. And after all of that, you'd think it wouldn't get any worse for Trunks, but I was wrong on that, because he's being chased down by an evil shadowy figure which turns out to be an evil version of Son Goku. Black Goku is what they call him. Not much is known about him because we're just getting into that, but he appears to be very strong and very evil. He's killing whatever people are left in that timeline, and it took Future Bulma a whole entire year just to get enough fuel to put in a time machine to send Trunks back to the past for help. That's how serious this is. And in the process, she is killed. Future Bulma is dead. So now Trunks has no parents. Vegeta was killed first, and now Bulma is dead. That fucking sucks. The only person that Trunks has left is that girl Mai from Emperor Pilov's gang. And I have no idea how they became friends or love interests, whatever you want to call them. But they try to escape Black Goku and she is killed in the process. That is the second important person in Trunks' life that was killed. So now he has nobody and he finds himself in the past. And that's where it leaves off at. And I can't wait to see the next episode to see what current Son Goku is going to do against his evil twin counterpart. Let's see how this is going to go. Let me ask you guys a question. You can answer in the comments below. Do you prefer to watch anime in Japanese or in English? I'll let you know my answer right now. It depends on which anime I'm watching. Now let's take Dragon Ball for an example, the whole Dragon Ball universe. Now, I actually prefer the Japanese dub to the United States dub because there are a lot of things in the US dub that get names wrong and pronounce names wrong that are in the Japanese dub. Let me give you a couple examples. In Japan, they're Saiyajins or Saiyans, but in the US dub, they named them wrong and called them Saiyans, and that's wrong. They are cyborgs in Japan, not androids, but the US calls them androids. The Kaioken technique, which has King Kai's name in it, I don't see how they could have gotten that one wrong because King Kai created it. The Kaioken technique, over here they call it Kaioken, and that's wrong. So when you look at it that way, I prefer the Japanese dub because that's the way that they wrote it, and we got it wrong. And there's different things about each dubs that I actually like. When it comes to the humor and jokes, I enjoy the US dubs of animes the most. But when it comes to emotion, I enjoy the Japanese dubs more because I feel like they project more emotion into their dialogue. I'm not saying that the US dubs don't have that, but I just feel it more when it's in Japanese. And I'll give you another example, even with video games. The Resident Evil series, like Resident Evil Revelations 2, I play that in Japanese. I enjoy it way more because it sounds more serious. The American voices are just annoying in that dub. So no disrespect to both of them, I enjoy them both. The voice acting is equal to me in both. I enjoy Masako Nozawa, who's been Goku since day one. She's been Goku longer than any other voice actor that there is. Over here we have Sean Schemmel. I grew up on the guy and I enjoy his voice as well. So they're both equal to me. Same thing with shows like Inuyasha. I enjoy watching Richard Cox and Monica Story as Inuyasha and Kagome. I think they're hilarious. But when it comes to emotion, I'd rather watch Kappa Yamaguchi and Yukino as Inuyasha and Kagome because it's pure emotion and I enjoy it more. That's just my personal opinion. The anime of the week is the Gokusen. It's the story of this 23-year-old girl named Yuki who leads a double life as a high school teacher for Japanese teenagers, and she's also the granddaughter of the head of the Tokyo Nenkyo Group, a syndicate mafia in Japan. This anime is only 13 episodes long, and it's not the best of the best, but it's definitely enjoyable. If you get a chance to watch this and you're in between trying to find animes to watch, check this one out. I just would like to take the time to send my prayers and condolences to those families of the victims that were killed at Club Pulse. I live near Orlando, so it is in my territory, and it just completely sucks that all these innocent people, I don't give a damn what they are. I don't care what their sexual preference was. They were innocent people that were just enjoying their lives and a good time out. Lost their lives just because of hatred and prejudice. And I'm sorry for your loss, and may every single one of them rest in peace. And that's it for episode 23 of my podcast show. If you like what you heard, you can check out my other 22 episodes on my channel, KC The Most. You can also check out my topic videos where I talk about real world topics. I also do wrestling reviews and interview reviews. I just put up one with Ric Flair's interview with Chris Jericho. It's worth a listen. I also have a Twitter handle at MostKC and a Facebook page by the same name, KC The Most. You can let me know what you think of my videos there. This is your boy KC. I'll check you out later. Peace.